Imagine a map of Europe like a chessboard. Grand, orderly, and covered in centuries of spilled ink and broken empires. Now, plant your finger in the dead center, where roads, rail lines, power grids, and alliances converge like steel cables to a single anchor point. That anchor is Germany. And if you're thinking of invading it, pause the movie, put down the red string, and maybe phone a friend. Because on paper, Germany looks like an inviting, flat highway into Europe's heart. In reality, it's a spiderweb of terrain traps, industrial muscle, allied firepower, and political tripwires. Touch one strand, and the entire web vibrates. Here's the uncomfortable truth for would-be conquerors. Modern Germany isn't a solitary fortress. It's the lock in a vault door that is welded to an even larger vault. You don't just fight the Bundeswehr. You fight every road that can be blown behind you, every river that can be turned into a wall, and every ally who spent 30 years practicing how to race into Germany faster than you can say, "Where's my logistics convoy?" Spoiler, it's already a crater.
Let's start with a confession that sounds like an advantage for an invader. Germany is mostly open country from the north. The North German plain looks like tank country. It looks like history's old invasion boulevard, the route of countless armies marching east-west and west-east. But the map lies by omission. That plain is laced with rivers whose names are less famous than their habit of stopping armies. The Elbe, the Weser, the Ems, the Oder. Each one is threaded with choke point bridges designed to be dropped or defended, and backed by urban sprawl that eats armoured divisions the way a hedgerow once ate Sherman tanks. Between the waterways are forests, wind farms, which your helicopters will love, and soils that turn to porridge in the wrong weather. If you've ever parked a heavy vehicle on soggy ground and felt it sink, congratulations. You've completed the German spring offensive in reverse. To the south, the terrain climbs into uplands and foothills that whisper the names of past battles and present headaches. The Bavarian forest, the Thuringian forest, the Swabian Jura, then the Alps beyond. These are not postcard backdrops, they're funnels. Every approach narrows into predictable corridors. Great if you're defending them with sensors, artillery, and drones. Terrible if you're the one trying to shove a motorized brigade through a mountain pass while someone names a barrage after your license plate. Swing west and you hit the Rhine, Europe's industrial artery and a defensive dream. On the surface, it's shipping and bridges. In wartime, it's a moat with carefully scripted demolition sequences. Ask any engineer battalion in NATO how many hours it takes to remove an invader's options with pre-charged pylons, and your sense of adventure will plummet. In the north, the Baltic Sea looks tempting for amphibious bravado, until you remember the Danish Straits, Swedish and Danish shores now linked by alliance, and a Baltic that might as well be NATO's supervised swimming pool. Cross it with a fleet and you're betting your invasion on surviving layered air defenses, maritime patrol aircraft, and minefields with personality disorders. There are easier ways to audition for a submarine movie. Then there's the part of the plan that never survives contact with reality: logistics. Germany is Europe's rail and road superhighway. The original wake up and be in another country by breakfast network. That's magnificent for defenders, because the same infrastructure that sends Volkswagens to Valencia sends armoured brigades to wherever trouble flares. It's an invader's nightmare, because the grid is dense but not yours. Railway hubs become defensive citadels. Bridges become traps with explosive personality. Tunnels become choke points, and detours don't exist when your heaviest vehicle weighs 60 tons and your alternate route is a medieval lane where delivery vans fear to tread. You can't wish new roads into being. You can only discover how thoroughly someone else prepared to break the ones you need. All of that would already be rough. But Germany's true impossible factor doesn't come from geology, it comes from geopolitics. Invading Germany is not like climbing a fence into your neighbor's yard. It's like breaking into an apartment and discovering the building is attached to a police station. Article 5 of NATO turns a strike on Germany into a strike on the most powerful military alliance on Earth. We're not talking about angry letters. We're talking about US and Allied air power launching from German soil and from just about everywhere else. Fighters, bombers, cyber units, satellites, and a logistics machine that's been rehearsing large-scale reinforcement through Germany since the day the Cold War ended. The country hosts key American and Allied command hubs, air bases, and pre-positioned gear. You don't just invade Germany, you pick a fight with Rammstein's tanker fleet, with the air defense umbrella of multiple nations, and with an alliance whose favorite hobby is moving heavy equipment across borders at improbable speed. Inside the Bundeswehr, the story isn't the tired stereotype of an underfunded force stuck in the 1990s. The wake-up call of recent years pulled a lever marked Zeitenwende, and the whole machine began to rearrange itself. That's not a slogan, it's money, contracts, and restructuring poured into air defense, long-range fires, armor, cyber, and the logistics backbone that lets all those things breathe. Modern Leopard 2 variants with improved protection and sensors, artillery that can reach out with precision, air defenses that stack from low to high altitude, with European systems tied to Allied Patriots and beyond, and new platforms for the seas, all of it united by digital networks that shorten the distance between seeing and striking. If you're trying to fly low and hide, Germany has radars with opinions about that. If you're trying to motor at night, thermal optics do not care how sneaky your paint job is. If you're trying to overwhelm by quantity, welcome to the age where a battery of well-networked guns can put steel and submunitions exactly where your column is going, not where it was. Of course, hardware is only a fraction of the story. The modern German way of defense is deeply multinational by design. German divisions integrate Dutch brigades. Logistics are planned with Polish rail and Czech roads in mind. The Baltic states are rehearsed with German-led EFP and soon permanent German formations forward. And multinational headquarters stitch it together, so that when someone says move, multiple flags answer in one language: timetables. An invader that crosses a border today finds out they didn't cross one, they crossed 20. A bridge in eastern Poland determines how quickly a hospital in western Germany spins up ICU capacity for a surge of casualties, and how fast a depot in the Netherlands pushes ammunition east. That's the kind of choreography you cannot improvise in wartime. It exists beforehand, or it doesn't exist at all. Germany lives at the nexus of that choreography. Air power. Germany lives under a crowded sky of friendlies. Eurofighters patrol, and newer stealth aircraft roll in to plug into the same kill web, while the shared picture is fed by NATO AWACS and ground-based sensors that double as the worst alarm clock an invader ever heard. The integrated air and missile defense isn't a single wall, it's a quilt. Point defenses around critical assets, area defenses along corridors, and long-range interceptors for the somebody got ambitious shots. Missile volleys suddenly become math problems, answered by multiple countries at once. That doesn't guarantee a perfect shield. No system does. But it guarantees that every incoming strike must pay an escalating tax in losses and effort that grows with each attempt. Meanwhile, the defenders have no such tax to pay when they fire back. And if you think you'll avoid all this by going covert, sabotage, cyber, a little accidental infrastructure fire to soften the target, prepare to meet a society that invests heavily not only in soldiers, but in the gearheads who keep the lights on when things go sideways. The Technisches Hilfswerk is not just a disaster relief brand, it's a nationwide Swiss Army knife with cranes, pumps, generators, and crews who treat broken bridges and flooded tunnels as technical puzzles, not endpoints. Police and security services have broad capacity. Reservists are being rebuilt into territorial defense, and the country's civil warning systems, command posts, and redundancies have regained the seriousness of people who finally looked east and said, right, enough sleep. Now, let's play a wargamer and walk through the classic How I Would Invade Germany PowerPoint that a bored dictator might commission. Approach 1. Blitz across the North German plain from the east. First problem. To get there, you had to roll across allies whose entire national plans are built around slowing you, reporting you, and breaking your spear tips before they hit the German border. Your supply lines stretch over hundreds of kilometers of contested highways and rail choke points that do not belong to you. Every logistics yard becomes a shooting gallery for drones and artillery. Every bridge is either down or covered by sensors. And the defenders choose where to fight. You took a geography quiz and discovered the answer tank country was graded on a curve. Approach 2. Swing through the Alps via Austria or Switzerland.
Aside from the part where you just declared war on more countries than your staff can list, you've committed to an invasion through passes and valleys where rock slides, avalanches, and human beings with artillery have an open marriage. Your columns stretch thin, your air cover gets patchy, your engineers run out of hours, and your fast dash becomes a slow sequel. The hills have ambushes. Approach 3. Amphibious daring in the Baltic or North Sea. Alright, Neptune's nephew, you hired landing craft. Now you need sea control, air cover, and ports. The Danish straits are waiting like toll gates run by people who keep Patriot batteries as pets. The Baltic's littorals are cramped, surveilled, and now bristling with allied radars and fighters from more countries than your translator can keep straight. Mines are a constant. Submarines hunt from below. Maritime patrol aircraft from above. And every pier you covet is within artillery reach of someone who keeps a pre-planned fire map in their desk. Approach 4. Airborne lightning strike to decapitate leadership and seize key hubs. Classic, cinematic, and tailor-made for the 20 minutes between your paratroopers landing and your transport planes learning that landing zones surrounded by layered air defenses, drones, police, reservists, and angry locals with smartphones are not quiet places. Even if you seize an airfield, sustaining it under fire while Allied jets race down the autobahns of the sky is a logistics experiment that rarely ends with you holding a capital. It ends with you holding a press conference. All roads lead to the same wall. Germany's impossible isn't a spell. It's a convergence of geography, infrastructure, doctrine, and alliance. Add the industrial base, Rheinmetall and friends cranking out ammunition, upgrades, and new systems, and you face a defender that doesn't just resist, it reconstitutes. If you think you can win by attrition, you are now playing chicken with an economy and alliance network that outlasts yours. If you think you can win by shock, you must generate more surprise than a defender who lives in a command and control web built to see first, decide fast, and hit hard. Let's talk rivers again, because everyone forgets their personality until it's too late. The Oder on Germany's eastern edge is not the Volga, but it's enough water to erase your timetable. The Elbe, the Weser, the Rhine, each has limited crossings. Blow them at the right moment, and you're trapped in pockets with too much metal and too little fuel. Even if the defenders choose to let some bridges stand for operational reasons, you cross under a blizzard of drones, laser rangefinders, and gunners who spent their careers rehearsing, what do we cover? That bridge, armies move on fuel and bridges. Germany makes both scarce to the attacker by design. Meanwhile, the defenders have pontoon bridging units and contingency plans to reopen what you close, which is a nice way of saying they steal the mobility advantage back while you're still screenshotting Google Maps. Urban terrain is the multiplier. From the Ruhr's industrial lattice to Berlin's sprawl, German cities are built of concrete, steel, and habits. Police, firefighters, and civil defense practice together. Hospitals tie into regional grids. Air raid shelters have a new generation of architects looking at them. And remember those famed German regulations everyone jokes about? That bureaucracy becomes a defense superpower when it shifts to wartime footing. Manifests for fuel, inventories for depots, standards for interoperability. Paperwork is tyrannical in peacetime. In war, it means the right spare part is where it should be when a Leopard needs it. You can try to outrun a Leopard, but you will never outrun German paperwork. It has the right stamp, and it's already at your flank. What about the sky over your invasion? That sky belongs to squadrons wired into a pan-European picture with layers of air defense below them. Low-altitude threats find Iris T-style systems hunting them. Medium-altitude cruise missiles discover Patriots with attitude. The very long reach of exo-atmospheric interceptors gives your deep strike a very expensive education. Your drones, once the darlings of cheap warfare, start failing selection exams as electronic warfare gums up their guidance and jammers peel them off target. Meanwhile, the defenders' own drones, ranging from hand-launched scouts to bigger, networked hunters, stitch together a mosaic that looks suspiciously like omniscience. Remember when you hoped to hide? The camera roll disagrees. Sea lines matter too. Germany's ports are not just places where cars leave on ships, they're enablement hubs. NATO's word for the places that turn Allied promises into pallets on rail cars. Bremerhaven can swallow entire armoured brigades and spit them onto trains. Wilhelmshaven handles the steel navies and their supply tails. An invader sees these names and thinks targets. But you cannot hit everything, and every strike teaches the defender how to repair faster, disperse smarter, and shift throughput elsewhere. The enablement machine has been a decade in the making, with Europe's military mobility push, customs forms simplified, border checks accelerated, bridge load ratings standardized. If you're an invader, that's a parade of bad news. Your enemy spends peacetime paving the road for their own reinforcements. Now comes the part that tends to stop the room: nuclear sharing and the shadow behind the shield. Germany sits under Allied deterrence, and in a crisis where an invader overruns calculations, that dimension arrives like a red line drawn with a flamethrower. No serious military planner ignores it. Those who pretend to are auditioning for very short careers. You might still say, okay, but isn't Germany soft? Isn't it a society of engineers, bakers, and people arguing about speed limits? Two answers. First, yes. Second, that's the strength. Industrial societies that know how to argue about speed limits also know how to swap factory lines overnight, run rail timetables across borders, and keep 50 Hz humming while things explode. The truth is that modern war is a test of networks, not of slogans. Germany's networks, legal, logistical, digital, are the sort that quietly crush the romantic fantasies of invaders who still think a column of tanks and a stirring speech will do. Let's weave in a little battlefield arithmetic. To seize and hold a country this size, with this density, you need not just a successful breakthrough, but also the manpower to garrison every junction, port, rail yard, refinery, data center, bridge, and substation behind you. That is a snake that eats its tail. Every battalion guarding your rear is one not punching your front. And the further you go, the longer your tail, the more it tangles, the easier it is for the defender to cut hunks out of it with raids, HIMARS-style shots, and surprise drone swarms launched from towns you secured, but did not in fact secure. Occupation without consent is a math problem even empires fail. Occupation of Germany, plugged into a continent that can keep supplying the resistance from the next country over, is a math problem with no solution. So, is Germany literally impossible to invade? In physics, nothing is impossible. In strategy, some things might as well be. You are not just trying to breach a border, you are trying to breach the world's most practiced reinforcement route. A layered air and missile shield, a defense industry that wakes up angry, and a society that treats disruption like a mechanical fault to be diagnosed and corrected. If you break something, thousands of professionals show up with clipboards and cranes. If you threaten a city, a common operating picture updates and 30 units move without anyone needing to yell. If you find a gap, it becomes a killing zone, not a highway. And if all of that sounds grim for the invader, we should acknowledge the comedy in hubris. Picture a general briefing. We'll race to the Rhine. Cue 3 German engineers sipping coffee, nodding, and politely asking which bridges you plan to use so they can rehearse dropping them in the correct order. Imagine a sabotage team trying to blend in and getting derailed by a friendly retiree who insists they fill out a recycling form correctly. Envision your elite armored spearhead, trained to fight through ambushes, suddenly stuck behind a farmer's tractor on a one-lane road because the bypass viaduct you counted on is now a pile of carefully distributed rubble. As the old joke goes, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics, invaders talk to insurance adjusters. Modern Germany is not the haunted memory of past wars. It's the cautionary tale for future ones. It sits in the middle of Europe like a great switchyard of steel and will, where east meets west, and where any attempt to smash through sets off sirens that echo from Reykjavik to Rome. The country's defense renaissance, its spending, rearmament, forward commitments, and integration didn't turn it into a lone super soldier. It turned it into the beating heart of a coalition that marches on timetables and telemetry. You can attack the heart, just know the body will respond. So here's the thought experiment's verdict. Can you invade Germany? You can try, and for a few hours you might even look good on satellite photos. But then the roads behind you turn to traps. The rivers in front of you lift their drawbridges. The sky begins to bristle. Ports become mouths that swallow brigade after brigade, all wearing friendly flags. The industrial lights stay on, the clipboards come out, and somewhere a Bundeswehr artillery officer smiles because the grid square you chose
already has a nickname. In the end, impossible isn't magic. It's the sum of obstacles that rob the invader of momentum faster than they can steal ground. Terrain that narrows, rivers that argue, cities that organize, allies that arrive, and a nation that treats defense like engineering. Calculable, repeatable, improvable. If you want conquest, pick somewhere that isn't connected to everything and everyone. If you want a headline, try a tweet. If you want Germany, bring an alliance bigger than NATO, a logistics machine larger than Europe's, a patience longer than history's, and a prayer. You'll still find yourself parked at a blown bridge, reading a sign that says Umleitung, detour, while a leopard's thermal sight stares back from the tree line. At that point, every conqueror learns the same quiet lesson. It wasn't the map that lied, it was the plan. And that is why Germany, in the only ways that matter to generals and historians, is impossible to invade. One more thing, if you still insist on trying, please take a number. The clerk will see you now. Bring your documents in triplicate. Declare your ammunition at customs. And try the pretzel on your way out. It'll be the only thing you conquer.